Greetings, Tezos Nation. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is Sam Bourque, Product Manager of Umami Wallet. Umami Wallet, for those who might not know, is the powerful new desktop Tezos wallet that combines best-in-class features to deliver a smooth user experience for both advanced Tezos experts and those new to the Tezos ecosystem. Created and developed by the amazing team at Nomadic Labs, Umami Wallet aims to support all features of the Tezos protocol and empower users with an unparalleled degree of convenience and flexibility. On today's stream, we'll be giving away one Tezos branded Nano Ledger and one Umami branded Nano Ledger to two lucky TezTalks live viewers. If you'd like one of those lucky viewers to be you, keep an ear out for a keyword later on during the stream. And of course, if you have any questions for Sam that you'd like me to ask, please add them in the chat at any time and we'll get to as many as we can before we wrap up. Hi, Sam. How are things in Mexico?
Hi. Yeah, it's cheap and cheerful, and it's hot, of course.
Perfect. To get us started, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you got involved with the Nomadic Labs team?
Okay, well, yeah, once upon a time, I got a computer back in 1984, and I started coding. So I've been coding for a very long time. But my first degree was in physics, and then I did another one in computer science. And I also have a law degree, but I've always been working in tech one way or another. I was VP for Morgan Stanley. I was head of the trading systems infrastructure for Japan. I was also CTO of an exchange. I got into crypto 2013. Back then I was in Hong Kong. And so, yeah, I kind of been all over the place, lived in, I don't know, dozen countries or so. I'm in Mexico now. So yeah, that's my personal background. I joined Tezos in 2020, in early 2020.
Okay.
And I was recruited out of Singapore. Incidentally, Arthur was in town at the time, and I met him. Yeah, we pretty much, I knew right away, and I met some people from the foundation. I knew right away, I really wanted to work with them, and it seemed reciprocal. And so then they just had to find the right place for me. And I then started interviewing people from Nomadic Labs, and yeah, I got along really well with them. And so yeah, that's how things got started.
Very cool. So as mentioned, Umami Wallet was created and developed by the team at Nomadic Labs. Can you tell us a bit about Nomadic Labs and its role in the Tezos ecosystem?
Right. So Nomadic Labs is I guess, premier in the sense that it was kind of the first. A lot of the OGs of Tezos are there, and it's basically I'm not sure what the right word is, but we mostly take care of the protocol and the protocol upgrades. We're not the only place, but we're dedicated to that purpose. But Umami came out of Nomadic Labs. That was basically a request from the foundation, yeah, like that wasn't my first job. My first job was to be a technical director within Nomadic Labs.
Okay.
And but yeah, that request came in from the foundation that it's at the time they were calling it a reference wallet. What if we had a reference wallet? And they kind of pitched that idea to us. And yeah, Nomadic Labs appointed me in charge of that new project.
Okay. Can you tell us about that role as Umami Wallet's product manager? Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, well, a product manager is a little bit different than pretty much any other engineer in that I'm kind of the nexus in between. So my day-to-day is I'll have meetings with the management committee, the board, and I'll touch base with the comms team, the adoption team, the support team, and of course my engineer, my team, and I set the priority, yeah, that's it. I just sit in between, and of course I still maintain a relationship with the foundation, and so I take feedback from them, and I align my priorities with their feedback.
Okay, so the concept originated with the foundation and got sort of put onto the Nomadic team, it sounds like. Why do you think those two bodies kind of both felt like creating and developing a new wallet should be a priority right now. Like, was there a particular issue with the other wallets that are currently available on Tezos that you were trying to solve?
I think it's a confluence of different interests. One of them was to create an ecosystem of I don't know if you say it like a Darwinian kind of thing, but it was kind of like, you had to build an ecosystem. So it wasn't just about having just one single point of failure, if you will, right? So you had to have a variety of different wallets, some degree of diversity, right, to have a real resilient ecosystem. But the particular need that Umami was meant to address was that we had to have something that was truly Tezos specific and that would basically keep at pace with the upgrades of the protocol. So every time there'd be a new protocol feature that was relevant to the wallet, it had to be included, and it had to support every little advanced feature, even if it was at a cost of usability, right? Just like it was primarily designed for advanced users. And had to be desktop, right? So so that's the key thing when it comes to wallets, and this will probably come up a lot in this conversation. It's like, where is that wallet installed, right? That matters a lot. And there was a gap in. So of course there's the Tezos client CLI, but that's a command line, and of course it can do everything. It's exactly in step with the protocol at all times. It is upgraded exactly in step with it, but it's not very usable. Right, so we needed something that was as advanced as the CLI, but just slightly more usable,
and that keeps pace with the evolution of the blockchain as the protocol is upgraded. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that was the primary purpose. Secondary purpose is then to kind of push the boundaries of different standards, try to innovate in different ways, in a purely unique Tezos way. So it's not in our roadmap to expand to other chains, but we do push. We try to innovate in many different ways. And yeah, in the beginning, it was going to be purely desktop, purely advanced users. It evolved over time.
So how does the Nomadic Labs team sort of like larger, extensive experience building and working in the Tezos ecosystem inform the way that Umami Wallet functions?
Right. So yeah, in a lot of different ways, right? So the team Umami is one of the teams inside Nomadic Labs, and Nomadic Labs has I don't know, I'd say like at least a handful of different teams. So there's some that specialize in crypto and privacy. There's some that track the protocol changes. There's also an incident management team. There's all these. There's an adoption team, communication team, and of course all the other administrative stuff like HR and whatever. But what the advantages that gives to the Umami team is that yeah, let's say we have a question about some new changes going into the protocol. Of course, we our team sits metaphorically speaking next to the people who are working on it directly.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of which, you are Nomadic Labs, and obviously you are a nomad, and it sounds like the majority of your team are nomads. Do you regularly actually come together and meet, or is it entirely remote, all of the relationships in the team?
Yeah. Well, I used to jokingly say that I put the nomadic in Nomadic Labs. For the longest time there was very few nomads in Nomadic Lab, but a few more now. No, we actually did get together once, and that was in late July. But even at that, it was only half the team. So yeah, it is hard to get everybody in the same place at the same time for obvious reasons. But someday we hope to all meet in person.
Very cool. So back to Umami. How is Umami Wallet different from the Tezos wallets that our viewers might already be familiar with? Like, what sets it apart in your opinion?
Right. Again, I think the biggest difference is where is it installed, right? So you've got different wallets. I'll single out Kukai, right, because they're kind of a web-based wallet, right? So that resides in the browser. Ours is not. Ours is on the desktop. So it was an easy collaboration for us to make, right? We weren't really stepping on each other's toes, and we were collaborating in different ways. So I think that's the first thing to look at is, where is it running? There's some desktop ones, and there's some web app ones, there's some browser extension ones, and did I say mobile or desktop? Anyway, there's 4 different places. So that's the first thing. So we can, once you pick where it's installed, then you can take advantage of what you have, right? So on the desktop, we have a larger screen. So we have a lot more real estate. We can handle a lot more advanced features, right? Which is important to us. I mean, that was our primary mandate. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Yeah, no, I'll just stop there. I think I don't want to get too far ahead of you.
Fair enough. We're gonna dive in a little bit more here. Great stuff so far. I'm excited to learn more. But before we sort of get into the nitty gritty here, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Perfect. Just before we do that, I'll announce the keyword for the Umami branded nano ledger and Tezos branded nano ledger that we're giving away today. Today's keyword is !umami, UMAMI. Enter the keyword !umami in the live stream chat, and Nightbot will randomly select today's winners, who will announce before the end of the stream. Okay, Sam, it is lightning round time. Remember, there are no wrong answers, and this is just for fun, so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Pizza or sushi?
I represent umami, so I'll say sushi.
It was a trick question. Movies or video games?
Video games.
Is this real life, or are we in a simulation?
That's a real life simulation. I don't know.
That's fair. True or false? Money buys happiness.
Yes and no. Trick question again.
Does
Tez buy happiness? Maybe that's a better question.
Does Tez buy happiness? That's a great variation. One thing you absolutely want to do before you die?
Not sure I want to answer that question, because if I incidentally do that, I don't like what that implies.
Anything goes here in the real life simulation.
There we go.
The last place you traveled was?
I'll say Maldives.
Maldives.
Everywhere else I went to, I lived there. So
okay. Yeah. In 5 words or less, how would your best friend describe you?
He's all over the place.
Okay.
And they probably mean that in 2 ways.
I was going to say. Finally, what's your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
I never go outside, so the same thing I do on every other normal day. I'll say video games. Simulated video games.
That's fair. Excellent answers. This concludes the TezTalks lightning round. Let's get back into it. First off, we have an audience queue that has come through. Prime Baking asks, good evening, Samuel. Any plans to add the Tezos domain .tez address in the sending option?
The answer to that is yes. We do have, we've worked out the integration with Tezos domains. If you want more details, if you'd like me to elaborate on that, I'll just say stay tuned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
There's announcements that will be coming.
So stay tuned, Prime Baking. More will be revealed. As we all know, token security is a hugely important aspect of the wallet user experience. What can you tell us about Umami's approach to protecting users and their tokens?
Okay, yeah, that's a very important question, and it's not exactly it's not the first thing. It's not the number one thing of a wallet. It's actually the zeroth thing. Like the first thing that people think about is like, I want all that convenience, right? But what's implied is like security. That's the standard. I mean, you shouldn't be in the business of wallets if you can't figure out security. So that's always implied, and it's yeah. So we always make sure to meet all the security standards. We've been through a security audit. and we'll keep going through more to make sure we stay on top of everything security. The one thing I'll mention is that every now and then we do have to purposefully make a sacrifice in terms of usability, because it would imply a weakening of, like a de-hardening of some aspects of security, and that's something we don't compromise on. Right. So without singling any other pieces of software, we do notice that in some cases there's some degree of convenience that would probably imply that they made a sort of compromise, which doesn't mean it's a vulnerability, but it might have left something open. And it's like, no, when it comes to us, we're not willing to make that sacrifice.
Well, I'm sure it can be a real balancing act, right? Because convenience and usability is obviously also hugely important to the user experience. I guess it's about finding the right balance, and it sounds like your team is aimed more so at the security and with that taking priority.
Yeah, I mean, we place it higher, right? So there's I always thought the three tiers, right? So security is number one, stability is number two, and usability is number three. So we'll sacrifice on the way up, but we won't. No, we'll sacrifice on the way down, but we won't sacrifice on the way up. So meaning we'll sacrifice some stability if it means that to avoid an incident, for example, like we would kind of shut down our servers if suddenly we realize, like, oh my God, there's a giant, severe incident happening. But we wouldn't sacrifice our security just for the sake of stability, right? So we wouldn't keep the servers open just so and at the cost of some sort of security vulnerability being open. Right, so
totally
that's
sense.
How we. But here's the thing: so we don't, but we also don't just give up, and in the sense that it's like, okay, we'd like to achieve this degree of usability, but if we do it the straightforward way, we're going to sacrifice some security. We don't just give up there. We still try to find innovative ways of maintaining our security standards and achieving, the good functionality.
Perfect. As I understand it, Umami supports both mnemonic and key store backups. Can you walk us a little bit through the difference between those two types of backups and why you made the decision to support both?
Well, the decision why was just that it was a request by the foundation, and it fit exactly with their mandate. It's like, we have to support everything. So the main question is, how are the two different? So the mnemonics are usually, there's variations, right? It's a series of words, right? It's 12 words or up to 24 words. Now the thing is if that's ever leaked, if a bad actor gets their hands on your 24 words, that's it. I mean, your account is compromised. They can just they can take those 24 words and load them into their own wallets, and they can pull the rug right under and steal all your funds. Right? There's no additional layer of protection on that. However, the key store is encrypted, and it's encrypted with your password. The same password that you use to secure your app is applied onto that key store file. So that's it. So you can take that file and you can load it up on. It's not recommended to kind of make your key store file public, obviously, but you could stash it. You could stash it on a cloud or something like that, and you can load it back up somewhere else, and you'll still need a password to open that up, to open up your private key.
Okay, so am I understanding correctly? So these are not two different ways that the backups are provided. It's more of an additional layer in a single method of backing up.
No, they are two separate ways, and they're two separate ways of achieving more or less the same thing.
Yeah.
Like if you don't want to lose your private keys, right? You don't want to lose access to your own accounts. So if you want to secure your access, you write down your mnemonic somewhere on a piece of paper. You lock it in a safe or something like that. But the key store file, it has that added layer of protection, which is the password protection.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not opening an Umami wallet and choosing one or the other. I can
You
have
can do both, right?
Okay.
Yeah. It's not
I see.
It's not one or the other.
Thank you for clearing that up. Another thing I was curious about, like when I was looking at your Medium account leading up to this, an article about batching.
Right.
And I wanted to ask if you could explain a little bit about batching and why it's important for Umami Wallet to support it.
Okay, yeah. Batching was one of those pretty unique features for Umami itself, because again, the larger real estate, it's not something you'd want to do on a mobile. It's a little too fiddly or on a Chrome extension, for example. But on the desktop with a lot more real estate, it was the right way to do it. So look, batching is just basically bundling up operations into one. And so you're just injecting essentially what amounts to one operation, but it's a list of operations hidden within a single one. So there's kind of an ecological aspect to this, and you save some fees. Now the savings are not super large, but at scale, that'll probably matter. And what we did on top of that is actually we innovated a bit further. This is one of the areas where we innovated and pushed the standard a little bit in two ways. So the first way was that there was already some places in the Tezos world where they were handling some types of batches, right? But they all had to be only Tez transactions. You couldn't bundle token transactions or NFT. You couldn't do that. But we did it so that you could have a completely diverse batch, just like the protocol is built, right? The protocol can just handle everything. It has a real abstraction as to what an operation is.
Okay.
So we were able to achieve that, and we also, from a UX perspective, I think this is probably the best user experience, is that we just have it kind of as a global concept. It's kind of like you're inserting stuff in the shopping cart, and then you just check it out later, and it all just goes out at once, right? And so that's one way that we kind of brought an improvement to how things work. Another way is that for pushing standards is that we created a way that you could create a batch from a CSV definition. So essentially, that just means if you have a list of people you want to send Tez to, and you have an Excel sheet, well, you can export it to Excel, and then you can just load it right up to Umami, and your batch will be predefined, and you just have to hit send, and off it'll go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Something you touched on earlier that I wanted to follow up on. You talked about a collaboration with Kukai Wallet.
Yeah.
And from reading leading up to this, it sounds a lot like the Umami team has not only taken the view that other wallets in the Tezos ecosystem are not competitors, but you've actually gone out and worked with the teams from those other wallets. What can you tell us about the sort of the nature of those relationships?
Yeah, between Kukai and us, that goes back as far as the beginning. So I was working pretty closely with Luis Gonzalez, who's one of the main guys in Kukai, and of course also with Klaus, who's their product manager. In that case, so it was a proposal. So the collaboration specifically is to do with social media credentials. So the ability to log in using, your Gmail account or Twitter or Facebook and Reddit. Mm-hmm. Now that's a really administratively intensive and very fiddly security thing to build. And I'll give credit to Kukai. They worked out a way to build a shared validator or is it verifier? Yeah, shared verifier. And because the way that usually works is that you might use your Gmail account in one wallet that's using the exact same tech, and you'll get an account out of it. And you use the exact same Gmail on a different branded wallet, but you won't end up with the same account. So it's actually, they do that for security reasons, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the default implementation that they had. But Kukai, in collaboration with Taurus, the company that came up with the custom auth system, they came up with a shared validator, and we were the first ones to sign up for it. Nobody else kind of did. And basically, that was also something we discussed with the foundation.
Yeah.
And basically in this case, it was Arthur Brightman just said, like, yeah, you know what? So we presented both cases. Like, we can have custom auth ourselves, and it'll be implemented really quickly, or we can put a little bit more work, and we'll have a shared verifier. And he said, like, yeah, I'm actually interested in seeing this.
Well, it is interesting conceptually to have, two wallets in the same ecosystem that, you could very easily be perceived as competitors with one another, right? And obviously your team made a decision that using this shared verifier and working directly with Kukai made the most sense, and they decided to work with you as well. And I'm really curious, like, from the perspective of your team and from the perspective of the Kukai team, why do you think you all felt like it was important for different wallets in the Tezos ecosystem to collaborate in this way?
I guess in my case, I never saw it as a competitive thing. I guess in a way, it's it really matters to kind of follow the money type thing, in the sense of some wallets are have their funding from grants, and in other cases it's part of, you have a close relationship with the foundation. Mm-hmm. So in our case, we have a close relationship with the foundation, so it's not we're not going through the same grant process as other ones where like you have a rolling grant and you might have to apply for new funds every 3 months or something like that. So that creates it has impact on how you look at each other, right?
Yeah.
And so in our case, our tie is close to the foundation, which means, okay, so we don't have the same funding, rolling funding requirement in terms of a grant application type thing. But of course, like, we have a very tight relationship, in the sense that we have to be exclusive to Tezos. We're not going to be branching out and going across chain and things like that. And Kukai was more or less the same thing. So it's just basically how things were connected to the foundation. Is more political in a sense.
Well,
how that ended up.
It is interesting that what you're describing is that these entities that are operating within the same ecosystem, they're sort of incentivized. The incentive, rather than grabbing market share at the exclusion of the incentive, is to improve the functioning of the ecosystem as a whole, right?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's the better answer to give, because that's really and that's the look, when the foundation sits there and they weigh whether to fund anything, of course they have to look at it through this lens, right? What is best for the ecosystem as a whole? And in our case, because we, like I said, we're not functioning as part of the regular grant system, we don't have to take a selfish view and try to be competitive and try to one up everybody. We don't really have that. So we are looking for ways, and everything we build is open, and we'd be open to do a lot more collaboration. Mm-hmm. We were looking for ways of building tooling that would be useful for everyone. Like the batching CSV standard, is one example. But we're looking to build more. Not ready to discuss what the other ones are. It's not far enough along yet. But that's really the primary driver for us, is to help the ecosystem. Yeah. Nomadic Labs is corporate mission is not, make Umami the #1 wallet. It's basically make the ecosystem as a whole better.
Well, it certainly opens some interesting doors to those types of collaborations, right? If the incentives are for each group, if the incentives are to just make the ecosystem run better and work together and collaborate to do that, um, some very interesting possibilities do open up, right? And I guess this
Yeah.
is one example.
Yep, that's right.
So, having said that, if what questions should a Tezos user ask themselves when they look at these different wallet options, when they're deciding which Tezos wallet is right for them? Like, are there cases where a user should be using multiple different Tezos wallets to accomplish different things?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of an obvious answer in the sense that, again, it's like, where is the wallet installed, right? So if you want to do more advanced stuff, then a desktop wallet might be better for you. So I recommend Umami as a pretty good desktop wallet. If you're doing stuff on the go, now you should probably be looking for a mobile wallet. If you work with a lot of dApps, then yeah, maybe in browser is right for you, right? So that's the first criteria you need to ask yourself, right? So what is it that you'll be doing with it? So it's basically, are you running advanced features? Are you a coder, or are you a baker? You want to do advanced stuff, or you're a builder, right? You build dApps. Then something on the desktop's probably right for you. If you're kind of doing a lot of shopping on dApps, maybe something that's in browser is best for you. If you're on the go a lot, then something on the mobile is best for you, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
As far as Umami as it currently exists, where is the project at in terms of its overall development? Like, is it basically a finished product at this point? You've teased that more features are coming, but is it largely function as it will at this point, or is there a lot more to come?
Well, I mean, it is a finished product in the sense that it's fully supported. We have a dedicated support team. We've got proper incident management. We've got formal processes all across the board, and it's deployed and it's maintained. We stay in lockstep with the protocol changes. So in that sense, it is quite good. It is a finished product in that sense, but it also, and I'm sure there's plenty of quotes that you could pull. Like a project is never finished; it's only ever abandoned, or whatever. There's like Michelangelo quotes or whatever to that effect. But basically, no, it's essentially it's never finished.
Yeah.
So I think that's always going to be true. So long as the protocol evolves, as long as Tezos exists, then yeah, Umami actually is never quite finished.
Okay.
So long as we keep upgrading. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, I don't expect us to ever stop upgrading.
Yeah, that's particularly true in this arena. That
Yeah.
the stage we're at in the overall evolution. Like all of these projects should expect to either continue evolving or to just disappear at some point, right? I have a couple more things I wanted to ask before we come to the end here. First being, can you explain the name Umami Wallet and why your team chose it?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a long answer because well, it was basically a bunch of focus groups. I mean, I had we had our own name for it in the beginning. We just called it the Reference Wallet, and we had a different name that Arthur just really hated. And so we had to come up with a whole bunch of suggestions, and we ran it by internally, focus groups within Nomadic. And in the end, we had three suggestions, and one of my least favorite was Umami. And I was in Japan at the time, and I was like, I don't need something Japan. It makes it feel like it's about me or something like that. And I didn't quite like it, but that's the one. I guess the clincher was just that we commissioned an artist to come up with. So we had three suggestions for three names, and he came up with logo suggestions. And his proposal for the Umami logo was just it was irresistible. It was just and so that's still the logo that we have.
Very cool.
And I think that was the kicker. So Arthur saw that and he was like, "Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Done
I want.
deal.
Yeah, I forgot about the other ones. That's it." Because we were about to do the pitch, like here's brand A, brand B, brand C, and he was just like, "C, I like that. I love that image. Go with that." And we're like, "Okay." So made that meeting a lot shorter.
And that was the end of your protest.
That was the end of that. Yeah. That was the end. Yeah, that's right. I stopped protesting at that point. I'll just mention. I see a question. What was the first name you came up with? I think it was portfolio, which was the Greek word for wallet, which was more of an internal name or whatever. We didn't have full branding. We weren't planning on releasing on that name, but Arthur hated it, and for very valid reasons, because if you Googled it, Google would say like, "Do you mean something else?" Right?
Yeah.
So it was like you couldn't even. So it was just like, and it was kind of a play on, is Tezos a Greek word or something like that? It was kind of, let's stick with the Greek. Anyway, it was it didn't go anywhere, and we quickly rebranded.
It sounds like you made the right decision going with Umami.
Well, yeah, Arthur deserves credit for that.
Very cool.
Yeah. And actually, I'll just mention we had some other ones. We actually had another name. We actually went kind of far with it, but then we realized there was not really a competitor, but let's call it a sibling chain, which had a wallet by the same name. So it was just like, it's the name collision, and let's just be a good neighbor and avoid that.
There you go.
So yeah, Umami was the one to go with.
Thanks for clearing that up. Just a general Tezos ecosystem question, as you're obviously pretty heavily involved. What do you think are the most pressing problems our ecosystem needs to solve in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't want to get too much on a soapbox here, but yeah, I mean, this could be a very long question.
Please do.
Well, I mean, I'll try to keep it within the time, but basically, I think it's what's the word? Accessibility, right? It just needs to be more accessible to your average user out there, right? So there's no need to hide it. Ethereum is eating people's lunch, and it's not necessarily that they have the best tech. I mean, that's really the thing. It's not really that we have to improve the tech. It's that we just need to be more appealing. I think that's really where things need to go. And that's that. Yeah. And how that relates to me and to Umami is that I really want to expand features that people will use. For example, batching, I think, is really great, but it's not meant to appeal to a broader audience. It was basically just proving, not exactly an academic point, but it was basically something that was only going to be useful for a small group of people. So I'm looking for use cases that are really that are actual either business/retail business cases, or something that anybody could just get involved in with, either 0 clicks or just a couple clicks, something that's just really useful. And so in my case, I'm prioritizing. So internally, I'm just talking about a goal of mine. This is not an announcement, but a goal of mine would be to have some tight integration with transaction relays. Transaction relays to mean like the ability for someone to pay for someone else's fees, right? So if you imagine you go to, so someone builds this brand new marketplace, and he's selling NFTs. Let's just say that's an easy business case. And maybe he says, like, for the first 1,000 customers, they don't have to pay fees, right? We'll cover their fees. So that's great, right? Because imagine that, someone could just download a wallet, never even buy Tez, but just could go there and start interacting. Could start placing orders or something like that for free. That's not currently possible, or it's not easy to do right now. So looking for ways to make that integrated. And so that's actually a very sophisticated solution, right? Because you actually need an off-chain service to be the relay, because you can't inject unless you actually have fees attached to it. So you need an off-chain relay to then bundle up the fees and then inject. So we actually need an off-chain service. And also all the wallets have the default behavior that when you click send, it injects immediately, right?
Yeah.
We need to change that so that it would actually go that way. It's that problem is actually a bit more complicated than that. I didn't even touch there's the idea of policies as well.
Yeah, and it's obviously it becomes quite complex once you explore it. It's a very interesting concept, and I couldn't agree more that accessibility is the big hurdle that we need to get over, right? Like, I personally believe the primary reason that the big boys are the big boys at this point in the game is brand recognition. And being first to post and being part of the big media explosion when all of a sudden everyone was talking crypto. If your name was out there at that time, you have this huge advantage. People know who you are. They go, I want to get into crypto, and those are the names that they first are presented with, right? And I think finding a way to circumvent that, which is what you're talking about, where can you be brought into the Tezos ecosystem quickly and easily in a way that with a usable use case that people actually want, that once you provide that, bringing people into the ecosystem becomes a lot easier, right? So I'm totally with you there.
Yeah, and I'll actually just mention one more thing. That
Please.
was already achieved to some degree, the accessibility with the social media credentials part, right? Because someone had can have a wallet without can have an account without ever have installed a wallet, right? So you can send to someone Twitter's account, and then later they can log in using their Twitter credentials and receive it. That kind of thing. That kind of thing is important. But yeah, that's just one step. We need many more like that. We need more entry points from people who are completely new and don't own any Tez. Right.
Well, I mean, my entry point to the ecosystem was a Christmas email from Jev saying, "Hey, Stu, here's 5 Tez. Open this wallet and you can claim them." And now here I am, right, with my Tezos hat. So yeah, again, I'm totally with you there. I'm also aware that we're running short on time here. Before we close off, I'd like to announce the winners of today's Umami branded Nano Ledger and Tezos branded Nano Ledger. Today's winners, the winner of the Umami Ledger is Old Future, and the winner of the Tezos branded Nano Ledger is Stake Now. Congratulations to both of you. To claim your prizes, just email us at social@tezoscommons.org. We'll request a screenshot for verification that you're the account owner, and then we'll get your shiny new ledgers over to you just as quick as we can. For anyone who missed out today, remind you there are frequently awesome giveaways here on the TezTalks live stream, so keep tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks, and we'd love to hear from you. Sam, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always awesome to speak to the folks building useful tools like Umami Wallet here in the Tezos ecosystem and keeping Tezos at the forefront of the blockchain revolution. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or plug or get to before we sign off here?
Yeah, so far I've talked about how Umami has some basic features on desktop, but stay tuned. We have more announcements to come, so we're kind of loading them up, and sometime next month we'll be making a large amount of announcements.
Right on. Where's the best place for people to sort of keep tabs on your progress and hear these announcements as they come out?
Yeah, just Twitter, Umami Wallet, or umamiwallet.com, either place.
Perfect. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on the TezTalks live stream. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, and our awesome guest has been Sam Bourque, product manager of the Umami Wallet. Now let's go get seamless.